Wherever you are in the world, I hope that you are safe, that you are well, and you have all the LPG you need to continue making delicious meals at home. Because it's highly likely that in the next few days, a restaurant near you has to shut because they don't have an LPG cylinder. This is, of course, directly a result of the US-Israel-Iran war and the energy crisis that's happening all over the world because energy is not being allowed to freely move through waterways. Now, there are diplomatic efforts in place. It was reported today, the day I'm recording this, that 2 India flag vessels were allowed to successfully pass through the Strait of Hormuz. We'll see what happens. But a really interesting bit of tech-related news that came out of this. Because of the LPG shortage, the Indian Oil One app, the Android app, rose to #1 in the Google Play Store. Why? Because that's the app that can be used to book an LPG cylinder, and apparently, well, not apparently, actually, a lot of people have downloaded the app in the last few days. If you've downloaded the app and you managed to book an LPG cylinder, let me know in the comments. Apart from that, I was hoping to sort of not talk about the US-Israel-Iran war in this week's episode. Your news feed, I'm sure, is flooded with real and fake news about this war, so I didn't want to bore you with it. But there was a bit of news that came out the day I'm recording this, which brought me right back into it, and which you need to know as well, because one of the risks of this conflict is that your internet could get disrupted. And I am talking about something called subsea cables. If you didn't know, subsea cables that connect cities, countries, and continents to one another are the reason the internet works globally. The internet works around the world not because of satellite, not because of overseas telephone cables, but because of subsea cables. These are literally insulated cables about the size of a garden hose that lie bare on the ocean floor. And there are like 500 really long cables like this around the world today, which total about 1 million miles in length, that keep the internet, 99% of internet traffic from one country, from one continent to another, flows through these subsea cables. There are massive cable laying projects announced by Google and Meta in recent times. I mean, Google themselves in the India AI Impact Summit, which was a month ago, announced a massive India-US connectivity initiative where they are laying new cables to connect India with the likes of Singapore, Australia, Africa, South Africa to the United States. Meta has had this massive 2 Africa subsea cable laying project which has been going on for a few years now to connect London and the UK all the way down the west coast to the east coast of Africa, to the Middle East, and to India, terminating in Bombay. The news that I'm talking about that came out today is that Meta has had to pause a large section of this 2 Africa cable laying project because it falls in the Strait of Hormuz. There is a big safety risk for vessels to continue operating in a conflict zone. And this is not the first time, the work is being impacted. About 4 or 5 months back, Meta has actually had one of its cabling vessels hit by the conflict during the conflict with the Houthis in Yemen. Now, of course, this delays the laying of new cables. Fortunately, there are still existing cables on the ocean floor which connect the internet, but these cables are very fragile. They can be damaged with something as benign as a fishing net that fell on the ocean floor, let alone a sea mine or a navy ship that has sunk to the bottom of the ocean floor. And once a cable is damaged, if there is no redundancy, that is, if internet can be carried by other cables that are functional, internet at the terminal is disrupted. And it takes days to repair such a cable. And then if a cable is damaged in a war zone like what the Strait of Hormuz is right now, it's not like you can send a repair ship to go and repair this cable that is damaged. That the very real risk, apart from rise in oil prices, which is an issue, it's happening, another risk is that connectivity, your internet, can be disrupted if the right or wrong subsea cable is damaged by this conflict. And I hope to God that doesn't happen. I hope that doesn't happen so that you can continue seeing my weekly episodes on YouTube and subscribe if you haven't yet. Anyway, I hope you're staying safe and stay till the end of the video to see what else happened this week in Tech India. E-commerce giant Flipkart, which was a Singaporean company for many years, is now, as of this week, officially an Indian company. They have completed their reverse flip process, which was started a few months back, and I've been talking about it. Well, it's official now. They are fully an Indian company. They're getting ready for an IPO later this year. But theirs is not the most anticipated IPO. If you remember, I talked about it last week. The most anticipated IPO, not just tech, but overall, the most anticipated IPO of 2026 is Jio. And it was revealed last week that they seem to have hit some kind of a roadblock. The current IPO rules state that if a company wants to raise capital in the stock market, they have to list at least 5% of their paid up capital on the stock market. Jio wanted to list only 2.5% of their capital. So instead of complying with the rules, the government is like, you know what, we'll change the rules so that we can meet your demand. So in September, the SEBI changed the rule to say that a company, a large company, which is obviously what Jio is, can list 2.5% of their paid up capital on the stock market. Jio was just waiting. This roadblock was Jio waiting for the government to make this official by publishing it in the Gazette. I said it was going to be only a matter of time before the government does that. I didn't know it would be so soon. Literally this week, the government published this rule change in the Gazette, which allows big companies like Jio to list only 2.5% of the capital on the stock market. Roadblock removed, Jio IPO is on track. Fintech giant, that's what they are. They are a giant now. I'm talking about Razorpay, which is, if you remember, the first non-banking financial entity to receive all 3 payment aggregator licenses from the RBI. Well, this week they announced something called Sprint 2026. I don't know if this was a physical event or not. It's basically a website, and I'll link to it in a video description. You can see it for yourself. But you know what? I'd say don't waste your time. It's a trippy sort of website, which is a very heavy, it takes a long time to load. It is supposed to have 100 AI related announcements condensed to one. I tried counting and I didn't count 100 announcements, but anyway, I can summarize it for you. Basically, Razorpay is trying to go all in on AI, specifically agentic AI. What the promise is that in every step of the payments process from KYC till payment closure and follow-up, an AI agent will do half of the tasks for you. For example, for onboarding a merchant, the AI agent will look at the KYC documents to try and save your time. It's a very noble promise. Look, there are a lot of things I don't trust AI with, even today, and money is the last thing among all of them. The promise is there. The promise is that AI will make fewer mistakes to try and get to a point where an AI agent will make fewer mistakes than a human would, a human doing the same job. But we are not there yet where we can say, where I can safely trust an AI with my card details or UPI details or my payment information and whatnot. I guess still, if there's one company today that can probably do this whole AI agentic payment thing, it is Razorpay. So we'll wait and watch. Speaking of scam, okay, I wasn't really speaking about scam, I was talking about AI. But every now and then, in a separate bit of news, every now and then we get reminded that there are bad actors out there who want to swindle your money, and a scam gets reported that's so big you would be wondering how did this happen for so many years. This week, the PIB, that is the Press Information Bureau of India, released a statement which said that arrests were made in connection with something called the Get Bitcoin Ponzi scheme. What it is that basically it's a Ponzi scheme that has been running for many years, by the way. You would wonder how it was allowed to run for many years, where investors would be fooled into giving a certain entity money, which they say would be invested in cryptocurrency, and they would be assured certain returns. I remember, I didn't know that this Ponzi scheme was happening. I remember that over the last few years, a lot of my friends came to me and it's like, hey, should I buy Bitcoin? Should I buy Ethereum? Should I buy crypto? And I was like, don't invest in something that you don't really understand. And then they would show me these ads about like what was clearly a shady looking website, but very professionally done. It would be hard pressed to sort of see that they are scams, telling you that they would give you assured returns. So for me, the kicker, the red flag was something called assured returns, which nothing in the world can give you except maybe fixed deposits. Then also, what if a meteor strikes the bank and you don't get it? Anyway, there's no such thing as assured return. I didn't realize until today when I was preparing for this episode that those websites could actually be part of this giant Ponzi scheme, which has swindled crores. We are talking about multi-thousand crore Ponzi scheme, where a lot of people were swindled into giving money to this entity on the promise of high returns from crypto, and this entity would just misappropriate the money. One downside of cryptocurrency, I'm not a big crypto bro. I'm not a big believer in crypto, to be very honest. For me, right from the beginning, crypto has not really solved any problem. The only problem it solved is for drug dealers and other horrible people out there to be able to peddle their stuff without being traced by the government and still get money. But the charm about crypto is that it has made a handful of people rich in a very short period of time. And so that charm was clearly being used by an agency like this, the one running the Ponzi scheme, whose name I won't take, but I'll link the PIB announcement in the video description. You can take a look. That charm was clearly being used by this agency to take money from people on the promise that they would become millionaires and billionaires very quickly, just like these handful of people that is in the news. Do not fall for that. This is not I don't give financial advice. This is not a finance podcast or episode series. But if there's one thing I can tell you, do not buy crypto unless it's from a registered exchange protected by the government, protected by the RBI. There are actually a few of them, and be very, very careful where you put your money. Global movie streaming giant Netflix has opened, well, they have a VFX company called Eyelash Studios that has 4 locations globally. Well, they've opened a 5th location globally this week in Hyderabad, in a big opening ceremony that was attended by the Telangana Chief Minister Revant Reddy and by actor Rana Daggubati. You would remember Rana Daggubati from Bahubali, or maybe one of the many films that he's acted in. But this VFX studio, and that's basically what it is, it's a VFX studio spanning some 32,000 feet. I think it's clearly, one is to get around the H-1B visa restrictions that is imposed by the Trump administration recently. You can't bring people to the US, you can't bring Indians to work in the US, so we'll open offices in India. That's what Google is doing. That's what OpenAI, Anthropic, all the others are doing by opening offices in India. But also Netflix clearly wants more access to the Indian talent and the massive Indian market. Netflix in the US was particularly in the news recently. This is not related to India, but it's really worth knowing for walking out of a multi-billion-dollar deal to buy Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers was on sale. One of the most prestigious Hollywood studios, Warner Brothers. Netflix was about to buy Warner Brothers for something like, I don't know, 70-something billion dollars. But then Paramount Skydance, which is owned by the Ellison family, very good friends with Donald Trump, put in a hostile bid, which was first rejected by Netflix. But then Donald Trump himself got involved. The federal agencies of the United States got involved. Paramount Skydance submitted a much bigger bid, which was still not looked at favorably by the Warner Brother executives and the shareholders. But then environment was created that Netflix just walked away from this deal. And now Paramount Skydance is set to buy Warner Brothers, which is also a risk to the so-called freedom of speech in the US, because part of this deal is for Paramount Skydance to buy CNN. So you have the Ellison family that already owns massive media outlets, also owning CNN. You have Elon Musk owning X, formerly Twitter. You have Mark Zuckerberg owning Facebook, Instagram, Meta, Threads, and whatnot. These are what they call oligarchs. So when somebody, American friend, tells you freedom of speech is under threat in the United States, this is what they mean. You can expect vast levels of censorship. The Broadcasting Organization of the US, the chair of the FCC, Brendan Carr, has actually threatened to withdraw licenses of big news broadcasters unless they report the US-Israel-Iran war in such a way that makes Donald Trump look less of an idiot. That is the extent of suffocation of freedom of speech that's happening in the US right now. So if an American or a Western person tries to lecture you about freedom of speech, laugh on their faces and show them this video. Eternal, which you know is the parent company of Zomato and Blinkit, it was reported that they've injected some 450 crores into Blinkit. Now, I would normally not give a second look to this bit of news. It's normal for parent companies to inject money into, well, one of their companies. But what is interesting, this is interesting for 2 reasons. One is, in 2025 alone, Eternal infused more than 2,000 crores into Blinkit, even before the whole gig worker strike and whatnot. And of late, a lot of other companies are also injecting money into their quick commerce arm. Swiggy, Reliance, even Amazon, even Flipkart. There's a pilot project in Bangalore for Flipkart to get into quick commerce. So I'm starting to wonder why all these companies are putting so much money into quick commerce, especially when we are still fresh off the issue of the gig worker strike. I'm honestly starting to believe that this quick commerce industry is also one giant Ponzi scheme in India. Let's hope it's not. The Maharashtra government has once again shut down bike taxi services. If you remember a few months back, when the Maharashtra government gave provisional licenses for bike taxi aggregators, Rapido, Ola and Uber, to operate bike taxis in Maharashtra. Well, this week, the Transport Minister of State, Pratap Sarnaik, announced that this license was given on the condition that they furnish certain documents to prove compliance to certain provisions of the E-Bike Act of Maharashtra. That has not been met by any of these companies, and so as of this week, bike taxis are no longer valid, no longer legal in Maharashtra. In another bit of news, one of these companies, that is Uber, has partnered with an entity called Abhi Bus, great name, to launch intercity bus ticketing services in India on its app, which means that you can book bus tickets from one city to another right now through the Uber app. Very convenient. I'm going to close off by not essentially a bit of news, but there was a statement, I don't know, you might call it a statement, post put out by the Press Information Bureau, which basically highlights the achievements in the semiconductor space by the country of India in recent times. I'm not going to read that out over here. I'll link it in the video description. You can go and take a look. It made me feel good as a tech enthusiast and as a proud Indian to read that and realize how far we've come in the field of semiconductor manufacturing, which is so important to the tech world and which is critical for anybody wanting to be a global dominant player in the tech world. So well done. And with that, I'm going to wrap up this week. Thank you for watching. Do make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. That's the only way you can support me. Well, you can also go to my website. There's a lot of good stuff there. And go check out the latest post of this Week in Tech India, where I've introduced 2 new segments based on your feedback that I'm extremely grateful for. Keep the feedback coming. Do let me know what you think of these additional segments. And I'll see you guys next week. Until then, stay blessed, stay curious, and stay informed about tech in India. Bye.